Chapter 287, Master Lei was excited. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Lei Jing looked at the 5 pieces of jade on the table with some contempt. There were 3 jade bracelets and 2 jade rings. The material of the jade was not bad, but still quite common. A few pieces of carved jade were nothing for a martial arts master. A piece of spiritual crystal could buy a whole basket of them. Lei Jing pursed his lips and picked up a spatial ring with his 2 fingers. He played with it for a moment as if there was a dung beetle in his hands. He dumped it on the table and rubbed his fingers on the cloth violently. He said lightly, "You want to sell them at the auction house? Don't make me lose face." The auction house of the Devil Marshal City is the largest one in the Omen Ridge. Only the best treasures can be sold there. Only prominent figures of the first class can enter the auction house. Lei Jing meant simply, take your dung beetle's no carved jade away and don't make a fool of yourself. Zhang Yuochen smiled. "Master, can you please look at them again?" "Look again?" Lei Jing stared at the table with doubt. Was there some mystery to these carved jade pieces? Out of curiosity, Lei Jing picked up the spatial ring again and infused a stroke of genuine qi into it. Boom! A thin layer of white light appeared from the surface of the ring. It was like a fake door to a secret space. When Lei Jing discovered the secret of the spatial ring, an overwhelming light came into his eyes. He looked at the pieces of jade on the table like a sugar daddy looking at a bunch of beautiful naked women. Lei Jing looked at Zhang Yuochen again and piled up the 5 space treasures. He covered them tightly with his big hand, afraid that they would fly away. Lei Jing dry coughed twice. With a serious expression, he said, "You haven't been with me very long and don't know this, but I have 5 wives. I think these jade pieces are very fine and I want to bring them back as gifts for them." Zhang Yuochen was not impressed. He hadn't expected that the master of the silver-gowned elders hall was an old scoundrel and would want to take away his own disciples' treasure. Lei Jing showed a curious expression. "Right. I was going to ask you." Lei Jing showed a curious expression as well and asked, "Right. I was going to ask you." Zhang Yuochen said, "Once I discovered an ancient cave from medieval times and found some treasures inside it. I found not only these pieces of jade, but also several top-level books of practice skills." In order to cover his identity as the son of Emperor Ming 800 years ago, Zhang Yuochen could only make up a story. There was nothing else he could do. Lei Jing knew long ago that Zhang Yuochen must have had some adventures. Otherwise, he was just a prince from an inferior commandery. How could he have opened up 27 meridians? At least, the exercises he practiced were quite amazing. This was not that strange. Kunlun's field had a long history. There had been many masters since ancient times. Even for Zhang Yuochen to discover the cave of an ancient saint, it was not that odd. Lei Jing was a man of principle, so he didn't ask about Zhang Yuochen's adventure. And he never considered stealing Zhang Yuochen's practice skills. Yan Lixuan had had a heart not because of a book of sword techniques at the superior class of the spiritual stage. He hadn't broken through the realm for decades. Loss was greater than gain. Lei Jing stared at Zhang Yuochen intensely. "What do you mean?" Zhang Yuochen smiled. "As far as I know, a warrior has only one chance to revitalize his exercises. That is at Fish Dragon Realm. Fish Dragon Realm is also called 9 changes in the Fish Dragon Realm. At this realm, a warrior will go through 9 changes. A warrior who can complete it is a fish forever and can never get the holy door. A warrior at the Fish Dragon Realm can exchange a practice skill every time he experiences a change. The higher his practice skill is, the faster his practice speed is, and the higher his future achievement will be." "Master, don't you want to get a higher class of practice skills?" Lei Jing smiled. "The Blood Cloud scripture I practiced is an exercise at the inferior class of the ghost level. Compared to the most powerful one, Holy Universe-reaching skills, in Yantai Suzerain, there is no difference." "Can you bring out an exercise more powerful than Blood Cloud scripture?" Zhang Yuochen replied, "Unfortunately, I found an exercise at the superior class of the ghost level, which is called Blood and God Classics. It seems to have the same origin as Blood Cloud scripture. Revising Blood and God Classics was certainly an easy thing. I wanted to give it to you. Since you're not interested then." Zhang Yuochen hadn't even finished talking, when Lei Jing stood up suddenly and roared, you are such an unfilial disciple. When did I say that I wasn't interested? Lei Jing seemed to notice his malpractice and sat back awkwardly. He said with a smile, Zhang Yuochen, your cultivation is still at a low level after all. You may not understand the exercises at ghost level. Take out the Blood and God classics, so I can appraise it for you. It may be real. Zhang Yuochen didn't bother to whet Lei Jing's appetite any further. He took out the Blood and God classics which he'd written long ago and gave it to Lei Jing. Lei Jing looked at the Blood and God classics with his hands shaking. He seemed to be calm but was very excited. It was just a copy, not an original exercise. Lei Jing opened the first page of Blood and God classics and read the first sentence. He fell into it, stuck in the mysterious exercise like he was enchanted. He was very fond of it and unable to extricate himself. He kept shouting, "Bravo! Excellent! It is indeed excellent! It deserves to be an exercise at the superior class of the ghost level. It is exquisite and profound. Even a saint can't explain its subtlety." 2 hours had passed. Lei Jing didn't remove his eyes from the Blood and God classics. It seemed that he had forgotten Zhang Yuochen was standing beside him. If he kept reading, Zhang Yuochen suspected that he would continue for a month. Master, master, master. Zhang Yuochen called him 3 times. Lei Jing removed his eyes from the Blood and God classics unwillingly. It was like he was holding a unique treasure. He held the Blood and God classics tightly in his arms. He was so afraid that Zhang Yuochen would take it away from him. Never mind Zhang Yuochen. Even if the owner of School of the Martial Market wanted to take the Blood and God classics away from him, Lei Jing would fight to death for it. The exercises at the inferior class of the ghost level and the exercises at the superior class of the ghost level were only 2 classes apart. But the value of the exercise was more than 100 times different. Originally, at Lei Jing's age, he'd had no hope of breaking through to the half-saint realm. But the Blood and God classics gave him hope again. As long as he practiced these exercises at the superior class of the ghost level, he had a great chance of reaching the half-saint realm. The more Lei Jing looked at Zhang Yuochen, the more he felt pleased. He was so lucky to have such an incredible disciple. He not only had incredible talent, he also had incredible luck. If his luck was not incredible, how could he have been able to get such an incredible practice skill like the Blood and God classics? Master, Zhang Ruojin began. Have you made your decision about the auction? Having received the Blood and God classics, the 5 space treasures were not so attractive to Lei Jing anymore. Lei Jing looked at the 5 space treasures and said proudly, Zhang Yuochen, don't worry. I will handle it properly for you. You just sit back and wait, and get a sack to hold the spiritual crystal for when auction day comes. I don't need a sack. I have more powerful space treasures. Zhang Yuochen took out a newly refined jade space bracelet and passed it to Lei Jing. This jade space bracelet is a present from me to you and 100 times better than those 5 space treasures. I hope you can take it. Lei Jing picked up the jade space bracelet and looked at it carefully. He discovered that the internal space of this bracelet was extremely broad, and there were defensive inscriptions and owner recognition inscriptions on it. Compared with it, the 5 space treasures on the table looked like defective goods. He had been joking when he discussed giving the 5 space treasures to his wives. His disciple had had 5 space treasures and wanted to sell them at auction. He hadn't wanted to give them to his master. Lei Jing had been unhappy about it and had just wanted to scare him. But now he could see that Zhang Yuochen was not unwilling to show filial respect for his master. Rather he wanted to give him something better. Lei Jing was certainly in a good mood. When Zhang Yuochen left, Lei Jing put on the jade space bracelet. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. He couldn't help but laugh. Good boy, you deserve to be my disciple. Zhang Ying, Jifanshan, Lei Jing called. Hearing Lei Jing calling them, 2 silver-gowned elders rushed to the silver-gowned elders' hall and bowed to Lei Jing with one knee on the ground. Hall master, what do you want us to do? Please rise. The 2 silver-gowned elders stood up. Lei Jing took a very thick pile of invitation letters and said, Zhang Ying, I order you to send these 10 letters within 3 days. Zhang Ying felt surprised that they were just letters. Was the hall master really making a fuss over a trifle thing, asking a silver-gowned elder to deliver them personally? When Zhang Ying took the 10 letters and saw the names on them, he was shocked. Master of Yuntai Suzerain, Han Li, head of God Blood School, Sima Ming, Master of Taiking Palace, Yi Hui, Prince of Minshu Commandery, Xi Xing. The names on the envelopes were all famous overlords in Omen Ridge. If any one of them sneezed, the 36 commanderies in the entire Omen Ridge would shake. What on earth had happened? The Hall Master wanted to invite these people. Jiang Ying asked, Hall Master, are you holding a decennial martial arts meeting? Lei Jing said, Jiang Ying, your memory is getting worse. Didn't we just have the martial arts meeting 3 years ago? But no buts, Lei Jing said. You just need to deliver the letters. Lei Jing didn't mention a single word about the contents of the letter. Yes, I'm leaving right now. After saluting Lei Jing, Jiang Ying walked out of the silver-gowned elders' hall quickly.